traditional lands known as Treaty 4 territory, the original lands of the Nakaway, Nahayu, and Nakota nations, and the homeland of the Métis Nation. Before we hear from tonight's guest speaker, I'd like to ask Brett Queering to report on the Christmas bird counts. So take it away there, Brett.
Okay, I should be live, so if you can't hear me, say something, I guess. So we had our three Christmas bird counts as per usual, although they happened a bit differently this year. We had the Regina Craven and Balgony counts, and the results turned out to be very good. We had participation that was on par with what has happened previous years, maybe a little bit higher in some cases. And because we couldn't go out in groups, we had more area covered. So we got kind of higher bird totals than we've had for some time. So on the Regina count, we had broken records for pretty much every species that is sort of like common and distributed across the city. So things like house sparrow, house finch, chickadee, downy woodpecker, all those types of things, red-breasted nuthatch. So there was a lot more that we found. In terms of number of species, for the Regina count, we had 36, which is sort of the high end of normal. The best bird was a varied thrush that had been seen for a few weeks before the count. So that's a bird that's been 6 or 7 years since we had it the last time. And the Regina count, we counted almost 8,300 individual birds, and we counted what's the number in front of me? About 800 and some gray partridge, which broke our record, and as far as we can tell, is the second highest count for gray partridge in the history of the Christmas bird counts across North America. So we found a lot of those guys. It was just bonkers. They were everywhere. And especially seeing that we had 36 last year, they were busy birds because they don't migrate. So that was fun. Other things of note on the Balgony count, we got an eastern bluebird, which is only the second time an eastern bluebird has ever been seen on a Saskatchewan count. So that was sort of the highlight there. And on that count as well, we broke our record for most species seen. We had 30, whereas the record was 26. Although that count's been only going for 10 years. In total, we had 83 individuals participated in at least one of the counts. So that's sort of, like I said, on par for what usually happens. And of course, some folks participated in all three. So I think if there was a number of folks that wanted to come out, but we really weren't set up for people that couldn't go out by themselves or didn't feel strong enough to kind of ID stuff out on themselves. So we probably would have done a bit better in terms of participation with that. And of course, the main thing that changed is we cut out all of our lunches and get-togethers. So that was necessary, but unfortunate, as those are some of the fun side things that we do during the count. So all in all, this count is not going to look unusual because of what we the changes we had to make this year, which was good. So I think it went off as well as one could hope. And that's all I have.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions? Or I know I helped out with the kids count with Nature Sask Kids Count for Kids that on the 2nd in Regina, and I think we had 5 or 6, at least that many groups in the park, and so it was fun. We had small groups, and yeah, that was good. It was a good day. It was nice weather. All right. Well, thanks, Brett. If nobody has any questions, or yes, okay. So our guest tonight is Justine Melo. Justine is the program's lead for Wascana and Upper Qu'Appelle Watersheds Association Taking Responsibility, WUQWATR. Justine has a strong background in environmental sciences, obtaining her bachelor's degree in life science and then going on to pursue her Master of Environmental Science degree from the University of Toronto, specializing in conservation and biodiversity. She lived in Ontario until 2018 when she moved to the prairies with her fiance, who works for the Saskatchewan Roughriders and has been working in the environmental field ever since. Justine joined the WUQWATR team in January of 2020. So I'll just turn it over to Justine, and hopefully everybody is muted so we don't have the background noise. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Elaine. I was going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint, so I will try to do that and see if, perfect, I can get it going. And there we go. Can you guys see the presentation? Okay, perfect. All right, so as Elaine mentioned, I work for the Wascana and Upper Qu'Appelle Watersheds Association, taking responsibility. We like to call it WUQWATR. It just makes everything a little bit easier. And yeah, so today I'm just going to kind of give a brief outline about kind of what WUQWATR is, what our vision and mission are, a bit of an overview of where we're even located, and some programs and initiatives that we like to do. I will touch on kind of the 2 main programs that we run, and then just have a couple of closing remarks. So I will get started on our vision and mission and a bit of an overview here. So WUQWATR, we're a nonprofit organization. We have a focus on promoting watershed stewardship through programming, communications, and different initiatives. And it's all to help protect our surface and our groundwater. So like I have on here, our vision, of course, we want to ensure sustainable or healthy, sustainable watersheds. And we work with different members. We work with agricultural producers. We work with government, industry, researchers, and pretty much anybody to accomplish this. And our mission here is to promote and deliver sustainable watershed management. And I'll touch on the programs that we do to allow us to accomplish this goal here, this mission. So a brief overview about kind of in general what WUQWATR, where we're located. So we are just over 23,000 square kilometers. So to put that into perspective, that's about 4% of Saskatchewan. We are one of 11 provincially recognized watershed groups and an active member of the Saskatchewan Association of Watersheds. So SAW is their acronym. Our main funder is the Water Security Agency, so WSA, but we also have other core funding partnerships, which include ALUS Canada, which is a program I'll talk about today, and the Ministry of Agriculture, who supports the Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program. So another program I'll talk about again. So yes, again, with these funders, we're able to deliver programming to landowners and municipalities within our watershed. So we work within our watershed boundaries and promote these programs. So here's a better visual just to kind of help you out to where we're located. So this is our watershed here. We range all the way up to Humboldt, over to Central Butte, Tyvan, up to Strasbourg. So we're pretty centrally located here. And we're made up of 4 subregions. So the Lanigan-Manitou subregion up here, the Last Mountain Lake subregion, of course, is around Last Mountain Lake, Upper Qu'Appelle region, and the Wascana Creek regions. So I do have a little map up here too to kind of give you a better idea of where we're located within the province. So just a couple little watershed facts. There's over 240,000 people living in our watershed. Of course, our urban population, our main city is Regina, so we've got a decently large urban population, and then a rural population of over 20,000. We've got about 35 rural municipalities around or in our watershed boundaries, 69 urban municipalities, and 17 hamlets. And like I mentioned before, of course, Regina is the largest city, so. All right, the next thing I'm going to talk about is just kind of our programs and initiatives here. So I'm going to take a little bit more time on this slide and just kind of go through a few of the things that we offer and things that we like to do at WUQWATR. So one of the things that we do every year is aquatic invasive species sampling. So we go out, and this year, and I know last year for sure, we've gone out to 11 different sites throughout our watershed. Majority of them, a lot of them were along Last Mountain Lake, of course, because it's one of the busiest lakes in our watershed. But also we go to Buffalo Pound, we sample Wascana Creek, we sample the Qu'Appelle River, and basically we are doing, we're sampling for zebra and quagga mussels. Luckily for us, they haven't made it into our waterways yet. We just got the report back and we haven't found any within within the waterways that we sampled. So that's always great news. But basically we're trying to do some proactive sampling here to make sure that we can catch them at first sight. We want to find them in our waterways before they've spread too far. So we look forward to keeping this up every year and going out and sampling and making sure that we haven't found any sign of them. We don't want to find any sign of them, but hopefully we don't. So yeah, that's one of the programs that we do in the summertime, of course, when the weather agrees. The next thing I wanted to chat about is citizen science sampling kits. So this is actually a pretty cool program that we offer through WUQWATR. It's in partnership with Water Rangers. So I'm not sure if anyone is too familiar with Water Rangers, but they basically have these, they're called citizen science kits, and they are little kits that you can take if maybe you have a cabin on a lake in Saskatchewan, or if you have you happen to live in Lumsden near the Qu'Appelle River and you want to go out and sample. So it's got everything from a little pH meter, the little pH strips in there. It's got a thermometer to check the temperature of the water. It's got a little kit to check for DO, for dissolved oxygen. Yeah, you can check all a bunch of different things for water quality. So the goal is to create kind of like a baseline database of the water quality throughout Canada. So not just throughout Saskatchewan, we just happen to be one of the places in Saskatchewan that offer these kits. But yeah, so basically when you're done sampling your water body, you can go and input all of your data onto the Water Rangers website. And on there, they collect all of this data from people sampling in Saskatchewan, in our watershed, people sampling in Ontario, wherever you may be. But it's just a really great way to not only get kind of that baseline information about the quality of our water, but also to get people really involved. And I find a lot of people, they love taking their kids out and they go and they sample the water. Maybe they have a cabin on Last Mountain Lake and they thought this would be a great idea to go out and sample. So this one's really cool. We do have some sampling kits still available. My email will be at the end of the presentation. If you are interested in a kit, you can definitely let me know. One of the other things that we just kind of do in general, we aim to be a strong advocate for our watershed. Of course, we try to be involved in as many different maybe concerns or things like these citizen science sampling kits, advocating for the health of our watershed, for the water quality in our watershed, just kind of any way that we can get involved. We're here, and if there is an issue, we always just like to say, come and chat with us. If we don't have a solution, we might know somebody who does, or we can try to work together to sort something out. Another thing that we offer is engaging youth through contests and school presentations. Now this is, of course, in-classroom presentations have not occurred in about a year now, of course, everyone knows, but we do offer, we've worked with Nature Regina, and we've gone out and we've helped at the outdoor kids clubs and chatted about watersheds. We did a scavenger hunt, that kind of thing. So we are available to come and chat with students. We do typically grade 8s is where we go when we talk about watersheds, because I believe it matches up with their curriculum. But either way, we can always work something out. And then through contests, we do have a poster contest going on right now for students to draw what they think of when they hear wetlands and wildlife. So it's really great. You get some awesome drawings from some kids in grade 3 and grade 4. So it's pretty cool. But yeah, we're always kind of looking for those opportunities to engage youth in any way that we can. And then one of the last things I'll mention on here is leafy spurge beetle collection. So this is something that it occurs every summer, typically early July. And you're able to go and collect these leafy spurge beetles. So basically, what leafy spurge beetles do is they eat leafy spurge, and leafy spurge is obviously an invasive species. So for those who have pretty large infestations, we can help out and go collect some beetles for them. We're also just kind of a resource if people want more information on how to go collect them. They can always come to us and we can help them out. Yeah, so those are just kind of a bit of a summary of a few of the things that we do. All right, so I'm going to touch on the ALUS WUQWATR program next, which is kind of one of our more focal programs that we spend a lot of time on. And I am the programs lead, but I also am the ALUS program coordinator. So I also deliver the ALUS program for WUQWATR. So ALUS, oh, I think I skipped. Oh yeah, here we go, sorry. So ALUS, kind of the main thing about ALUS, they help farmers and ranchers produce ecosystem services on their land. So you're gonna hear me talk about ecosystem services probably a lot today, but ecosystem services include anything from producing cleaner air, cleaner water, doing projects on your land that help with flood mitigation or maybe carbon sequestration. Maybe you're creating some species at risk habitat. So anything along those lines, helping with soil erosion, if you're creating or if you're completing a project on your land that maybe is going to enhance the riparian area, things like that, all can be considered an ecosystem service. And that's what ALUS is really looking to promote on the landscape. So ALUS Canada, WUQWATR is its own community of ALUS. So we are the ALUS WUQWATR community, and we of course still follow ALUS's vision and mission, which I'll go over here. So ALUS's vision is to have a community developed and farmer delivered program. ALUS sustains agriculture, wildlife, and natural spaces for all Canadians 1 acre at a time. So ALUS really, they want to be able to enable Canadians to provide direct support to a national network of farmers and ranchers, delivering these ecosystem services in their communities. And again, like I mentioned earlier, anything from producing cleaner air, cleaner water, erosion control, pollinator support, anything like that can be considered an ecosystem service. So ALUS Canada, just kind of give you an overview. It's all across Canada. Again, it's not just in Saskatchewan, but it's currently active in Manitoba, Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, Alberta, and PEI. And I believe BC is next on the list to hopefully start initiating some ALUS projects. So this is kind of a general overview of the ALUS program process. So again, this is a program that is delivered and is available for those who are in our watershed. They maybe have a project. So typically it starts with that farmer to farmer contact, or it starts with some sort of advertising through us. They hear about the ALUS program and they think, oh, okay, you know what? I might have a project. I might have some marginal lands, or I might just have a riparian area that I really wanted to enhance or to restore. And that could be considered an ALUS project. So typically it kind of starts in that sense. And then the next step would be the farmer could reach out to me, and I would send them an expression of interest and they would fill that out. So basically an expression of interest is, hey, I have this idea of what I want to do on my land. Of course, they're going to give me some more details just to help me out, give me the location, all that kind of stuff. And I typically would follow that up with a site visit just to get a better idea of what's on the ground. The next thing I would do is pretty much prepare their project. So somebody comes to me and says, hey, I want to plant some pollinator habitat on my land. We create an expression of interest. I maybe make some maps for them. And then I would bring that to my partnership advisory committee for their review. So the thing about the ALUS program is it's not up to me what projects we move forward with. I do have a partnership advisory committee, my PAC, and they're the ones who will review the project. And they will be the ones who ultimately decide if it moves forward or not. Say the project moves forward, the pollinator strips are approved, or the pollinator habitat is approved. Of course, they would sign into a participant agreement, typically for about 5 years. After that 5 years, it would be up for renewal again if they would like to continue the project on and they've obviously been maintaining it properly. Then the next step, the project would be established, and I would go and, of course, do a site visit, make sure it's on the ground, looking good, and annual payments would begin. So ALUS will pay annually for a project. Of course, annual payments, I'll go into those a little bit more after, but they depend on the type of project. Farmer would get annual payments for however long their project has been, is in contract for. And of course, throughout that time, so say they're on contract for 5 years, we will go and do some sort of third-party verification and some sort of site monitoring, just to make sure that the project is not just a pile of weeds, right? We want to make sure that it's still out there producing those ecosystem services that we like to see. All right. Yeah, so ALUS is focused on recognizing the farmer's efforts. So ALUS understands that ecosystem services, they provide benefits to all. They provide benefits to all Canadians, not just to the farmer who is completing the project. And as such, they should have a monetary value. So ALUS is a payment for ecosystem services model, which allows society to recognize the benefits which are provided by nature because of the stewardship of these farmers and ranchers. So like I mentioned earlier, producers, they are paid for their additional ecosystem services that they have produced, of course, because they're going to be maintaining them over the next 5 years. There is going to be some sort of maintenance going into these projects, making sure that they are actually producing these ecosystem services. So the ALUS program will pay them for that. So the payment structure for our ALUS community, we cost share establishment expenses and they get annual payments. So I'll go a little quickly into these two, but basically for our ALUS community, the PAC has decided that we will cost share establishment of 50%. So 50% of the cost of seed if they're doing a project that involves maybe seeding some saline soils to some salt tolerant species, just because maybe their canola wasn't producing on the land and they wanted to turn it into something that would actually be more valuable. So it could include the cost of the seed and any resources required to initiate the project. Me as an ALUS coordinator, not only am I here to kind of get the projects initiated, work with the producers, that kind of thing, but we're also here as some technical resource. So if they do have questions, maybe about their project or something that they're looking to do on their land and they just need some direction, we can always help them out. Again, if I might not know the answer, I do have a couple of resources that I could reach out to and see how I could help. And then annual payments, like I mentioned. So this is based on a payment scheme that has been approved again by our PAC in my community. So everybody's payment structure might differ. Us compared to an ALUS community in Manitoba, we might have different payment structures, but this is based on what we've approved. And it, of course, depends on a few different things. So where the project's located, how many acres, what the project is. So there's a few things that go into it, but we do have a structure that we follow. So it's fair for everybody. And then lastly, like I mentioned, we have a partnership advisory committee, my PAC. So there are 8 people on my PAC. They're all farmers and ranchers. Actually, technically 9. We just got a 9th member who is a government member. So she brings some great technical resources for us. But yeah, so we've got farmers and ranchers, and not only are they there to look at the projects, approve the projects, they're a great resource for me. I didn't grow up on a farm, so there's a lot of questions that I have when it comes to a few of these projects. So they're awesome resources for me, but they are also out there promoting the ALUS program. They are that farmer to farmer contact. They can be that word of mouth for us. So they're a fantastic resource to have. And then for them to make a decision about a project, it really just comes down to a few things. Are they following the ALUS principles? So is the project farmer delivered? Is it accountable? Is it community developed? There's a few different principles that they'll follow. But of course, mainly, are there additional ecosystem services being produced? Is somebody chopping down trees to plant new trees? Because that's not producing any more ecosystem services. That's just kind of taking one thing out for the other. So we just want to make sure that we're adding to those ecosystem services. And then funding, of course, if there's funding available for the project, sometimes we can approve a project pending funding. And that way, if funding does come in, we can call the producer and say, hey, your project's approved, you can move ahead with it. Other small things that they keep in mind, participant interest, local priorities. So if our PAC decides that water quality is going to be a priority for our ALUS community or ALUS program, then we will approve projects that really focus on improving water quality. So right now we don't technically have a local priority as of yet, but we've seen some pretty great projects moving forward. So it's been great. And then the last thing on the ALUS program I'll talk about is just kind of ALUS and WUQWATR to date. So a little bit of our background together. So WUQWATR is one of only 3 entities for the ALUS program in Saskatchewan. So there's only 3 different ALUS communities in our province. WUQWATR just celebrated, as of last year, 5 years with ALUS Canada. So the program was initiated in 2012. We do have projects that have stemmed all the way back to 2012, but that was with Delta Waterfowl, and it has since changed to ALUS Canada in 2015. So that's why we celebrate the 5 years. And then just to kind of get a better idea of how many acres we have. So ALUS WUQWATR by the numbers. Last year, we renewed 980 acres on the ground. Total ALUS WUQWATR acres to date, we've got just under 4,000 acres. And the total ALUS acres to date, I think it's a little bit higher than this now, but that's why I have the approximate sign before it, but over 20,000 acres. But it's still, WUQWATR has a significant chunk of those acres in the ALUS program, which is awesome to see. And then we also, right now we have 30 participants enrolled in the program. So that's not to say just 30 projects. Each participant, a lot of them kind of, once they start a project, they realize it's a great program and they want to initiate another. So typically we do have a couple customer repeats who want to come back and do a couple other projects, which is awesome to see, because you can tell that they're really stewards of the land and they want to help out in any way that they can. And we're proud to be working with ALUS to help turn marginal farmland into productive ecosystems. So yeah, so that's our ALUS program that we offer to those in our watershed. The next main program that I'll talk about is the Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program. And this, as I mentioned earlier, is run through the Ministry of Agriculture. So it's the Ministry of Agriculture's program, and we have our Agro-Environmental Technology Services Coordinator, another long acronym. Our ATS coordinator is what we like to call her, and that's Mandy, and she is the one who's responsible for running the CAP program. Yeah, so a bit of a background, the Canadian Agricultural Partnership Program, it's a 5-year, $388 million investment by federal and provincial governments in strategic initiatives for Saskatchewan agriculture. So the federal provincial investment is cost shared on a 60-40 basis, and the partnership features simplified and streamlined programs and services that are easy to access. The one thing I did want to mention about the CAP program is that it is for agricultural producers. Basically, I'll go through the 2 different streams coming up next, but both of them have eligibility requirements to be able to enroll in the program. So you have to be an agricultural producer who makes a gross farm income of at least $50,000 to be able to enroll. And WUQWATR, we are here and we offer our services for free, and we help you determine if you're eligible for the program, because there are more than just that eligibility requirement. So we'll help you determine if you're eligible. We'll help you complete your application. Some of the programs do require a significant amount of support and documentation, and we can help you complete that. And then we can also actually submit the application on your behalf to the Ministry of Agriculture. So we are here to kind of help you the whole way through. So it's kind of our side of the CAP program. Yeah, so like I mentioned, there's a bunch of different kind of streams here, but the 2 programs that we offer are the ones that are highlighted in red. So the Farm and Ranch Water Infrastructure Program, we like to call it FRWIP, and the Farm Stewardship Program. So we like to call that one FSP. So you might hear me say those 2 acronyms coming up shortly. But yeah, so funding in this area under environmental sustainability and climate change, it's used to support rural water development and environmental programming. So I'm not going to go into every single program offered under each of them, because we'd be here for a really long time, especially if I went over all the eligibility requirements, but I will go kind of through the main few points to take away from it. So the Farm and Ranch Water Infrastructure Program, FRWIP, it provides rebates to develop secure and sustainable agricultural water sources, such as wells, dugouts, and pipelines. And this program also supports rural well decommissioning. So I always remember this one because it's got water in the acronym. So that is the one that's related to wells, dugouts, pipelines, and well decommissioning. So FRWIP is designed to support the development of secure and sustainable water sources for agricultural use in Saskatchewan. So these are kind of the three main outcomes of FRWIP. FRWIP also wants to mitigate the impact of drought, and it also wants to improve public safety and reduce potential groundwater contamination, which is why the well decommissioning program is here. Okay, so there's two program streams under FRWIP. So you can see on one side, there's the rebate projects, and then the other side, there's the pre-approval projects. So the rebate projects include anything from digging a dugout or expanding a current dugout by at least 30%, installing a new well, or completing a pipeline project. So these types of projects, like it says in the name, they're rebate projects. So basically you have to completely finish the project and then give us a call and say, hey, I dug a dugout 2 months ago. I've got all of my invoices and everything ready. Let's apply for this rebate. So everything has to be completed before you can actually get any sort of funding for this. The other stream under FRWIP is pre-approvals. So this one includes well decommissionings and special projects. Well decommissionings, these ones, yes, sorry, these ones are pre-approval. So basically before you do anything, before you decommission your well, you have to come to us or you have to initiate your application first. So you have to get approval through the Ministry of Agriculture before you can move ahead with these projects. So that does make the two of them a little bit different. The one last thing I will note is for rural well decommissioning, it's kind of the one that sticks out a little bit, because if you don't meet that 50,000 gross farm income, the rural municipality that you are in is able to apply on your behalf. Of course, if they agree to do it, but they are able to apply on your behalf to get this well decommissioned for you. So that's always a great option. And then the special project section here is just typically something like a multi-user pipeline or a community water development that's used for agricultural purposes. So something like a community well used for agricultural purposes, that could be something that would fall under special projects, but that one's typically we would chat first about before applying to that one. Okay, and then the Farm Stewardship Program. So the other program under CAP is FSP, and it provides Saskatchewan producers funding to implement beneficial management practices in 3 priority areas. So the 3 priority areas are water quality, climate change, and biodiversity. You might be kind of wondering what a beneficial management practice is. Basically, it is something that any agricultural management practice that ensures long-term health and sustainability of land-related resources, that positively impacts the long-term economic and environmental viability of agricultural production, and minimizes negative impacts to the environment. So there are 9 BMP programs within FSP. So there's 9 different streams that you can go into. I'm not going to go over all 9, but I will show you kind of an overview of the 9 of them coming up next. All of these BMPs that I will show you are pre-approval programs, which means you have to do your application before you start work on the ground. You have to get approval before you start work on the ground, but in order to receive your funding. The one exception is the variable rate mapping BMP, which I will mention next. But yeah, so this one, it is a little bit different. Most of them are pre-approvals, and one of them, oh, I'll go to it next, yeah. A couple of them actually tie into the leafy spurge beetles I was mentioning earlier. So I won't go again into too much detail here, but you can see that there's programs here like permanent native forage. Typically permanent tame forage, which is the second row here, is the one that we see a lot of uptake in our watershed. So it was kind of like I mentioned earlier, if somebody has some land that maybe just isn't producing, maybe it's just super saline, maybe it's just very wet, it's just not producing and not working well, and they would like to kind of convert it to some sort of permanent tame forage, they are able to apply for this program, and they could receive funding of up to 50% up to $10,000. So there are a lot of options in here for producers, and there actually are a few in here that could even kind of combine with the ALUS program. We have had somebody who has applied to the permanent tame forage program and also used the same project for the ALUS program. So the ALUS program kept the project on the ground for more of a long-term sustainability sense. And then the CAP program is kind of that initial payment, that initial help out. Again, for something like permanent tame forage, the forage blend would have to be approved by the Ministry of Agriculture before you actually seed it. And then, yeah, there's just a couple other BMPs in here. The one I was kind of discussing earlier, the invasive plant biocontrol and targeted grazing program. So that is where somebody would use leafy spurge beetles on a large leafy spurge infestation. Typically, if you're going to release beetles, you would like to see your infestation over 12 acres. And then, yeah, you can use the leafy spurge beetles, and the ministry, as long as you get pre-approved, you could see some funding there to help you out with that project. So there are a lot of different options for producers that we can offer them through WUQWATR. We can offer our assistance, and even if a producer might not know if he qualifies for a program or doesn't even know if there's a program for something that he's doing on the ground, it's always better to kind of hear from them and talk it out, because you never know, there could be something that works for them. And then, yeah, that is kind of an overview of the CAP and ALUS program. There kind of are two main programs that I really want to go into a bit more depth on. And then, yeah, I just wanted to sum up here. WUQWATR, we deliver programming to landowners and municipalities within our watersheds. We're always looking for projects and input from all areas. If it's a concern or if you have a project in mind, feel free to reach out, to give us a call. We can always discuss it further. It might be something that we're already aware of, and we might be working towards a solution, or be working towards a project, initiating a project in that sense. Or it could just be somebody who has a question about whether or not they qualify for a program. I always just find it's easier to kind of give us a call or send us an email, because we do have a lot of different options for people that they might not know about. And it would be a great way for a lot of the producers to get that recognition for some of the great work that they're doing on the ground, some of these environmental stewardship projects that they're doing on the ground that we really love to see. So yeah, I think that is all I have. I do have my email here, and our website is listed there with everybody, with all of our emails and contact information on there. So if you happen to miss writing my email down and you had a question, you can always just check out wuqwater.ca, and our information is there as well. Awesome. Yeah, does anybody have any questions?
Actually, for the question period, I'm going to ask people if they don't mind raising their little blue hands. It's under their participant screen. So I'm just going to kick Justine's.
I was going to say, I can stop sharing. There we
go. Just to kind of show you what that looks like. So the participant screens, or participant part, is just at the bottom of the screen. So you'll see this thing that says raised hand. You'll see everybody's names here as well. It should show up on the right hand side. There's also a shortcut here. If you're on a computer, if you press Alt and Y, then I'll be able to see those raised hands. Okay, Ingrid, it looks like you have a question. So if you want to go ahead and unmute, you're welcome to ask.
Yeah, hi, sorry, I missed the first half hour because I'm so used to these meetings starting at 7:30. Sorry. And then at 7:30, I thought, oh no, I think it started at 7. Sorry. But I wondered if you had a map that shows the watershed. I mean, maybe you already showed it. You know?
Oh, that's okay. I can pull it up again.
Would you? Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm really interested. So I feel
for sure.
I missed half your presentation.
Oh, let's see if I can. Oh, I'm gonna have to go the slow way all the way back. There we go. in there. Okay, there we go.
Okay,
Yeah, so this is our, these are our watershed
Phew.
boundaries.
okay.
It's pretty big. Yeah, it's definitely a long day when we take sampling. When we sample up north in the Humboldt area, we usually try to get a couple things done up there, visit a few ALUS projects and things like that all in one time. But yeah, and then I do have, there's a little map on the side here that shows, here's my laser pointer, up here in the corner that kind of shows our location in the province to see where our watershed is.
Oh, this is the watershed here.
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is our watershed here, and then this is kind of its location in the province.
Okay. So it's not this whole area.
It's just the pink in this area, but that it is this whole map here. So we
Oh,
go
it
all the
is.
way up to Humboldt, so
so-
you can see
Oh, what's
Humboldt there.
Mm-hmm. I didn't know what you meant by the little red dot.
Oh, it's just a laser pointer. I'm
Okay.
pointing around here, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. I can stop sharing again so people can see the.
And next, Elaine has a question.
Actually, I have two.
Okay.
The first one's about the leafy spurge beetles.
Yeah.
So you bring them in to eat the leafy spurge. And then what happens? Because I know I've seen where, you know, people bring in goats to eat carragana or whatever, and then they take the goats away again. So what happens to the beetles? Do they die out on their own, or?
So I think that's why they typically like to see the larger infestations, because when you just have the small, like a small, like 2 acre patch or however large of leafy spurge, they will just die out. They won't really do anything. They need a large area where they can really establish, because we get them from Pheasant Campground, which is just kind of past Moose Jaw, I believe. And I don't know if you've ever been there, but they have a massive leafy spurge beetle infestation, or sorry, a leafy spurge infestation. I guess you could say leafy spurge beetle infestation as well, because that's where you go and collect the beetles. But yeah, I think that's typically why they ask you to make sure that you have a significant infestation before you bring them over there, or else they're not going to do anything.
Okay.
And that BMP under CAP, it's targeted grazing and biocontrol. So we have had somebody apply who not only was going to be using the leafy spurge beetles, but they were also going to be bringing in sheep. So it's kind of like a combo effort. But I think you do typically have to have a bit of a bigger infestation, which of course we don't love to see a bigger infestation of invasive species, but sometimes it happens. And typically if it's along a waterway and you don't want to go and spray herbicides along the waterway and you would like to use kind of an alternative there, that's where you could bring in the beetles. But yeah, if you don't have a big enough infestation, they will just, they won't establish, they'll just die off because there won't be enough to maintain them. I mean, they always say with leafy spurge beetles, they're not going to eat themselves out of house and home. So they're not going to completely eat every single piece of leafy spurge there and then just not have anything to eat. So that's why usually if you combine it with something else, like the sheep or goats, it can help kind of control the spread at least. So.
Okay, thanks. My other question was, I was surprised that you talked about decommissioning the wells. So you're talking about decommissioning oil wells?
No, water wells.
Water wells. Oh, okay, sorry, my mistakes. I thought, why? Where the heck are the oil companies? Okay, so if they weren't, they just wanted to close off the well and then dig a new one someplace else, or is it related to water quality or?
Yeah, basically all of the above.
Okay.
If you have a well, so a lot of people will have a well that's collapsed, or they just have a well that's they just haven't used it. They put in a new well maybe 5 years ago and they use that one more, and it's kind of, it can become a hazard, right? Especially the large wells, because some of them can be 2 feet, the opening can be 2 feet wide and they can be 50 feet deep. So sometimes it's just a hazard. They just want them off their land. But instead of people just going and filling them in incorrectly, there is the whole program, the well decommissioning, and that way you know that you're doing it properly. There's different layers. You have to use bentonite, and that way we're not going to impact the water quality of the aquifer. So yeah, I guess like water quality could be a reason. You could just have a collapsed well and it's just maybe it's just in an inconvenient spot and you want to get rid of it, or it could be a safety hazard. So yeah, a bit of all of the above, but there are a lot of wells out there that people just, they're on their property, they're not using, and they might as well get rid of them and properly decommission them. And I think that's definitely the point of the program, is to make sure that you're properly doing it and people aren't just going and pouring a bunch of dirt down there and calling it a day. So
yeah, that makes sense. Oh, thanks.
Yeah, no problem.
All right, next I have Ingrid again.
Oh, you're muted.
Okay, sorry.
Oh,
I noticed there were no hands up, so I have lots of questions. And
Okay.
my background is in environmental sciences and ecology. So, you know, been heavily involved in the environmental movement for many years. And one of the issues that I worry about, because I know Saskatchewan has the largest number of tons of pesticides and toxic pesticides and herbicides dumped on the land every single summer.
Mhm.
And it's like thousands of metric tons. And I know this watershed includes that. So like how can you deal with like contamination of waterways when that is the current practice and the long-term practice? And the other thing, yeah, the oil industry, I don't think it really operates in much of this area, in this particular watershed. But,
Yeah, I don't think we have too much in ours.
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. Oh, I was just gonna say, I think that's kind of where we try to bring in these other programs. Like we're working with the ALUS program, and I mean, I think doing kind of our part and the restoring and enhancing of the riparian areas, making sure that we have those kind of buffer zones before the waterways. And I know a lot of the producers, they want to do it. They want to have those buffer zones, at least the environmental stewards that we've been working with. So that's always awesome to see. And yeah, trying to build up those buffer zones and put in those projects on those marginal lands, and kind of like we're not here to compete with agriculture, but we're here to turn those marginal lands, like maybe those lands that just aren't producing, or maybe you have kind of a cutoff corner on your field that you just can't get machine equipment into. And it's like, why not turn those into some sort of ecological goods and services project? Like, why not plant some pollinator habitat there? Or if there's areas near the waterway that maybe just get too saturated every year, why not turn them into an environmental stewardship project? And then for ALUS to be able to offer that payment, that annual payment, I think is really an incentive for people. And I know, I mean, you can't get money for everything, of course, but I think that incentive there really helps kind of push that balance and help us kind of keep those waterways, I guess, clear as we can keep them. But yeah, I think trying to implement those environmental stewardship projects is kind of some of the steps that we're taking towards it, right? Like we're trying to do what we can with those marginal lands in those areas, because we might as well put some sort of environmental stewardship project there, some sort of project that's going to increase those ecosystem services, and try to balance out that that part of everything there.
So how do the fishing resources interweave with all that? Because I know that there must be, I know the province used to develop lots of different kinds of fish and actually put them into the lakes and some of the rivers in the springtime. I don't know if they're still doing that.
I'm not sure, actually. I don't know if they're still doing that or not.
The hatchery in Fort Qu'Appelle, or near Fort Qu'Appelle, a big hatchery. So that you don't know about. You know.
Oh yeah, no, sorry, I'm not too familiar with that one, but yeah. Most of the sampling right now that we're doing is kind of mainly around those aquatic invasive species, and then any sort of kind of water quality. Every time we go out and we sample for those aquatic invasive species, we do take a water quality test as well. So we test for pH and all that stuff, and we do put it up on the Water Rangers website to kind of add to that database. So that's kind of the sampling that we're currently doing. at the moment. That's the one that we've done last summer. I don't know what this summer has in store for us because we're always open to some more. So we might be able to get out there a little bit more often. We do love the field days. So yeah.
If nobody else has a question, another question I have is arsenic. I know arsenic tends to be really high in drinking water in and around at least Regina Beach, Buena Vista area, around Lost Mountain Lake. I don't know if you know, do you measure for those things too in terms of drinking water quality, or is it only, or is it like the invasive species and trying to rehabilitate habitat?
I would say right now we're definitely more focused on kind of the invasive species, rehabilitating habitat for species at risk. We do have a project that we just initiated this year to help with the bigmouth buffalo fish, to help kind of prevent that soil erosion and the sediment downstream. But drinking water, we don't necessarily, like, I don't test for drinking water to be able to tell people it's safe to drink. I haven't been involved with that, and I don't think that's what our watershed has been involved with, but yeah, I have heard about the arsenic for sure, but I don't have a comment on testing for it or anything like that. Sorry.
All right.
Did anybody have any more questions? Okay, cool. We'll let you off the hook. Thank you so much. That was a great
My
presentation.
email is there, so if anyone does have any questions, or if anyone is interested in a citizen science kit, definitely reach out, and I'm more than happy to help you out. So let me know. And thank you.
Thank you, Justine, so much. That was great to hear from you. And thank you also, I should have mentioned it at the beginning, for the help that you did give at the Get Outside Kids Club, because that was great. It was fun, the stuff that you were doing with the kids. So
it was awesome. Yeah, no, we really enjoyed it. Thanks for having us, for sure.
No, you're welcome. And you're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. We're going to hear from, actually, Shannon Chernick is going to talk to us a little bit about, Shannon's got a new title now because we've signed her up for another year. And she started out as a youth engagement, but it's gone beyond that. So now she's our project leader, education and public outreach. So Shannon, if you're still awake, she said she was up really early this morning. So if you're still with us, would you like to give us a report of what's been happening?
Sure, I'll just keep you guys probably for 5 minutes, but yeah, I was outside for 5 hours teaching kids learning to cross-country ski today. So one of the really fun things we're doing for the Get Outside Kids Club, the Regina Ski Club has partnered with us, and this is so wild to say out loud in a pandemic. We're teaching 120 kids over 4 days in groups of 10 how to cross-country ski. And the Dale Gerardis, obviously, from Regina Ski Club, and Don Lang are volunteering their time to do this. Like, they're not being paid. So they're amazing. Dale's getting all of the equipment organized in advance. Like, we've had to figure out shoe sizes and heights, and like, it is a big job. So yeah, I was out for 5 hours. I'm quite tired today, but it's so fun. Like, parents are just, people are almost in tears. They're so grateful. There's something positive happening for their kids during the day. So yeah, just for the Nature Regina membership, like, you really have no idea the positive impact that you're having on parents right now who are, and I'm one of them, who are attempting this whole homeschooling dealio, or this e-learning situation we're in right now. So yeah, so just a big thanks for that. And I wanted to let the membership know. So the city of Regina contacted us, Nature Regina, because they're so impressed by the public outreach work that we're doing. They were wondering if we could do some more. So I'm like, sure, what do you have in mind? So they're actually funding for the next 6 weeks. We've been able to hire Jordan Rusted, who is a field biologist, and she's the seasonal bander at Last Mountain Bird Observatory. So she is out there 6 months out of the year. She knows so much about birds and plants and wildlife. And she is going to be leading nature walks every Friday. So I think we have room for 36 people. And it's basically like a regular Nature Regina field trip, except for we're trying to make it sound fancy. So don't be afraid by it. We've branded it, right? Just for marketing purposes for the city of Regina. But okay, this is what I wrote it on my sticky, so I get it right. So we've branded it as our Get Outside Outdoor Explorer events. It's basically a nature walk. It's all good. And we're very lucky because the city of Regina is also providing snowshoes. So you can go on foot if you want, or there's going to be snowshoes to kind of go out and explore. This Friday, where she's going the Secret Path to a Bird Habitat, which is by the IMAX, by the Science Center, is this Friday. And then next Friday, she'll be going to AE Wilson Park. And we literally found out last week. So like the fact we even have anything happening so quickly, we have 2 weeks planned, and then we're figuring out our next locations kind of as we go. So if you're interested, it's small groups of 9, because she counts, once she's there, it's 10. And it's mandatory masking for the walk, social distancing, and then the equipment sanitized, like the snowshoes are sanitized between use. So it's just a safe, fun way to be with a very small group of people and get outside. And the other thing, the other thing the membership might be interested in, we're also, the city of Regina has provided funding through their winter activity grant. So we'll be having a monthly Get Outside free public event. So the next one is happening January 30th at the Royal Saskatchewan, just beside the Royal Saskatchewan Museum. And it'll include, we're going to do a little bit of animal tracking, just a little 30-minute bird watching walk. Oh yeah, and then an exploration of the native plant garden in winter to just kind of find out what's going on under the snow and ice. So that's happening on January 30th. And registration, Darylyn, oh yes, she's on the call. Shout out to Darylyn, who got all of the registrations on the website very, very quickly. And every week when I send her stuff, she's just so on it. So all those events are already posted, and you can register online, and then you'll get an email kind of a day in advance with some information about, washroom facilities and maybe how you might want to dress for the day and that kind of thing. So yeah, so there's that. And I think, oh yeah, Jim's on the call, and so is Ingrid. So this is our amazing volunteer communications team who makes sure that, all this info is going up on Facebook, Jim's sending it out through MailChimp, and Darylyn's keeping the website up to date. So there's lots more happening, but I won't keep you guys forever. I thought those were kind of the main, if you want to get out and do something. And if you're more interested in a self-guided like exploration, you can go to the website and download the newest Get Outside Outdoor Adventure Guide. And it basically, all of these public events we're doing are based on the information in the Get Outside Outdoor Adventure Guide. So you can go off on your own if you don't want to be in a big crowd of people. So yeah, I think those are the high points for the last for the last 3 weeks.
Well, thanks very much. And actually, that's good that you point out about the guides again, because I know that I've had conversations with other people in Nature Regina that said, one day I just want to go bird watching or whatever. And so you can make your own little group. Just go to the website, get one of the guides, and it might be a place that you've been before, but then you might find something new. But you can make up your own little group that's masked and socially distanced and go out with 3 friends or whatever. But so tell all your friends about it too, because it's so great to get outside. I know after I've spent a week on the couch, I just, we went cross-country skiing on the weekend. It was great. So yeah, sometimes you just you gotta get yourself out and get there, and it's great. So thanks, Shannon, for all your hard work. and everybody else that's helping along there too. So just, I guess back to the fact that the meetings changed to 7 because when we went to the library, we had to go by their hours. So then they close at 9. So we switched the meetings from 7 to 9, and now that we're not at the library again, I think we just decided that it was just kind of confusing to go back to the 7:30. So Ingrid, you're just going to have to move your clock ahead there by half an hour, and hopefully we'll see you next month. Next month, our guest speaker is Phil Johnson. He's a master organic gardener, and he's going to discuss what each of us can do in our yard and community to grow nutritious and delicious food for ourselves and create beautiful plantings that provide habitat and food for birds, pollinators, and beneficial insects. So I think it'll be really interesting. I know that Phil has helped out at, been interested in various things that Nature Regina has been doing as well in terms of plants and pollinator corridor and what have you. So we don't have a facility. We'll be doing this by Zoom until further notice. So this is where we'll see you. So take care, everybody, and we'll see you next month, hopefully.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks. You're welcome. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
Justine. That
Thanks
was
for
interesting.
coordinating, Elaine.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks.